Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcoming to the stage for his last performance of the King's final show, tour, the one, the only, the King of Rock and Roll, Elvis Presley. It was June 26, 1977, and Elvis had just walked onto the stage at the Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. It was his 55th show of the year, and even though his health had been poor, millions across the country had come to see him. Elvis would pass away a short time later at the age of 42. It devastated the music world that he had passed away at such a young age. To be known as the King of Rock and Roll, you know Elvis had to have made a huge impact over his short lifetime. But let's go back to where it all started in 1935. Elvis Aaron Presley was born on January 8, 1935, in Tupelo, Mississippi. There he was raised by loving, working-class parents named Vernon and Gladys, who had very little money. Though money was always tight, Elvis grew up in a very close family, made up of his parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins who all lived near one another in Tupelo. But even with very little money, Vernon and Gladys did their best to provide for their son, who was the center of their lives. As a child, Elvis attended the Assembly of God church with his family, and the music and preaching meant a lot to him. Music played a huge role in his childhood. Black blues players influenced him in his neighborhood, and country music was on the radio. At 11, Elvis stood on a chair and sang Old Shep into a microphone at a fair talent show. They broadcast the talent show over the radio, and Elvis won the 5th prize. For his prize, Elvis received $5 in fair ride tickets. At age 11, Elvis received his first guitar. He actually wanted a bike, but since his parents couldn't afford it, his mother talked him into getting a guitar instead. It cost $12.95. 2 years later, Elvis sang the song Leaf on a Tree with his guitar for his junior high class to say goodbye to all his friends. Soon afterward, his parents packed their belongings in a trunk, strapped it to the roof of their car, and moved to Memphis, Tennessee, in search of a better life. Other members of the Presley family would follow shortly after. Elvis and his parents lived in the poor neighborhoods of North Memphis. Life continued to be very hard for the Presley family. His parents had many jobs trying to make ends meet. In high school, Elvis worked at various jobs to help support himself and his parents. The Presley family remained close and together attended the Assembly of God church. As a teenager, Elvis continued to be known for his singing with his guitar. He listened to all the black blues and gospel he could find. He also attended the all-night white and black gospel shows that were held downtown. He grew his hair long and slicked it back, and let his sideburns grow. He was very different from other kids, a good-natured misfit. In high school, Elvis nervously sang with his guitar at a student talent show. Much to his amazement, he got more applause than anyone else and won. That summer, he dropped by the Memphis recording service and sang and recorded the song My Happiness, and That's When Your Heartache Begins, for $4 as a birthday present for his mother. This was the first time that Elvis met record producer Sam Phillips. In 1954, before his career in music took off, Elvis was a truck driver for the Crown Electric Company while attending night school, where he studied to be an electrician. Later that year, Elvis received a call from Sam Phillips to come back to the studio to try singing a song Sam hoped to put out on a record. A record is a big black disc that people used to use to listen to music. They sat it on a record player and it played the music back to them, similar to a CD, but bigger and black. They recorded Without You, but Sam didn't like it. Sam asked him what he could sing, and Elvis ran through several popular songs. Elvis met a guitar player, Scotty, and a bass player, Bill, to form a band, but nothing really clicked until July 5th, 1954, when they played a song called That's All Right. This song, backed with The Blue Moon of Kentucky, became the first of 5 singles that Elvis recorded and released. In the summer of 1954, Elvis, Scotty, and Bill started performing together, with Scotty acting as the group's manager. Elvis continued to work as an electrician as the group played in small clubs throughout the South. Elvis quit his job in October 1954 and focused only on his music. He appeared for the first time on the Louisiana Hayride, which was a live Saturday night country music radio show. They broadcast the show over the radio, which is another way people listened to music at that time. Elvis later signed a 1-year contract for 52 Saturday night appearances, which was a big break, but kept him from traveling outside the South. In 1955, he continued to tour with Scotty and Bill. In the same year, drummer DJ Fontana joined their band, just as Elvis was becoming more and more popular. Huge crowds showed up for his shows. Sometimes the police had to be called in to control the crowds. Elvis was very handsome, and girls all around had crushes on him. Elvis became more popular, and people all around the country knew about him. In 1955, he signed his first contract with RCA Records for $40,000, which at the time was huge. A year later, when he was 21, Elvis recorded the song Heartbreak Hotel. It would be his second Billboard #1 single. The same year, Elvis bought an expensive home for himself, his parents, and his grandmother to live in. The house, which became known as Graceland, is now a National Historic Landmark, and over 500,000 people visit it every year. Elvis appeared in concert for the first time outside the United States during 4 shows in Canada. Then he began filming his third movie, Jailhouse Rock, and later Loving You, and both were very popular. Elvis served in the army for 2 years and lived in Germany. There he met Priscilla Belu, who he would later marry in 1967. Just a few weeks after leaving the army, Elvis was back in the studio recording new music. And after he married Priscilla, their first child, Lisa Marie Presley, was born. They remained married for 6 years before divorcing in 1973. Elvis continued to put out new music and films for much of his career. He made 31 films and released 23 albums, with 4 of them becoming #1. He also released 18 soundtrack albums, 7 live albums, 2 spoken word albums, and 12 compilation albums. He won hundreds of awards for his music and films over the years and will remain forever known as the King of Rock and Roll. Elvis has been inducted into 5 Halls of Fame: Rock and Roll, Country, Gospel, Rockabilly, and R&B. He's sold over 1 billion records worldwide. Do you like to sing or play an instrument? If you haven't yet, you should try. Singing is a fun way to express yourself. You can start by singing along with a favorite song, and you can get better by practicing. Elvis practiced singing at church and with his family. He also learned the guitar by practicing, and then he performed in front of others. He was very nervous at the time, but he kept doing it and getting better and better. Like Elvis, try something new and practice. This is how everyone talented becomes very good at what they do. Thanks for listening to this episode about Elvis Presley, the King of Rock and Roll, and be sure to tune in next Monday for a new episode.